Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to yet another one. I am Sheepdog Smokey, and this one is a bit different because it's not so much just news, but an attitude that seems to be very prevalent today in political discussion. We have here from the City Journal: who commits most of the world's extremist violence? Evil as they are, white supremacists aren't even close to the top of the list, by Seth Barron. And I'll agree with Seth, but I'll take it a step further. Extremists, plain and simple, are evil. We've seen it with neo Nazis, we've seen it with the KKK, we've seen it with Antifa, we've seen it with the IRA, we've seen it with ISIS, the Mujahideen, with Hezbollah. So many groups. When any one ideology is taken to the extreme, you have so much potential for violence and other corruption. And we're going to look at this one specifically. Last week, the New York Times featured an illustrated timeline of white extremist killings over the last 9 years, with lines demonstrating citation and affiliation among the killers. According to the Times, the record shows an informal global network of white extremists whose violent attacks are occurring with greater frequency in the West. The idea that white supremacist violence is a growing global threat has gained more currency recently, notably in the wake of the ghastly Christchurch Mosque massacre, when an avowed white nationalist murdered 50 Muslims. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for instance, asserted that white supremacists committed the largest number of extremist killings in 2017. No one will deny that racial hatred is an evil ideology and that people who kill in the name of white supremacy commit evil. But is it true that white extremists are showing a growing amount of worldwide mayhem? The evidence suggests otherwise. Even a superficial glance at the record indicates that of the nearly 20,000 people killed in thousands of extremist killings in 2017, white supremacists were responsible for very few. The worst terrorist event of 2017, according to the State Department, was the explosion of a truck bomb outside of the Safari Hotel in Mogadishu, Somalia, which killed more than 580 people. This violent act is believed to be the work of al-Shabaab, which is responsible for 97% of the 370 instances of extremist killing in Somalia in 2017, accounting for almost 1,400 deaths, mostly civilian. The remaining violent acts were carried out by Jabhat East Africa, ISIS Somalia, a dissident al-Shabaab splinter group. Now, I want to look at something here where we look at the killings in 2017, and we see that of 20,000, 97% in one area are the work of basically ISIS. The deadliest extremist attack in Egypt's history took place in 2017 when ISIS Sinai terrorists converged on a mosque in Sinai during Friday prayers and slaughtered 312 people, including 27 people or children when they came outside. Also in Egypt that year, on Palm Sunday, an extremist suicide bomber connected to IS Egypt killed 30 Coptic Christians at a church in Tanta. He coordinated his actions with another suicide bomber who killed 16 people in a church in Alexandria. The first day of 2017 was marked by an ISIS attack on a nightclub in Istanbul. The Uzbeki perpetrator killed 35 people. In April, another Uzbeki rammed a truck into a crowd of people in Stockholm, killing 7. In August, ISIS militant Yunus, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, ran a truck into a crowd of people in Barcelona, killing 15. I mention these acts of extremist killing in Turkey, Sweden, and Spain to illustrate the global nature of the phenomenon. Strictly in terms of the number of people killed, they are scarcely of note. White nationalists committed none of the above violent acts of extremist killing, and that's nothing remarkable. Almost all the world's extremist violence is concentrated in a handful of regions, where very few white people live. In areas where whites do live, America, Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, white nationalists do indeed perpetrate a significant portion of the relative uncommon acts of extremist violence. Again, this is unsurprising because whites make up the overwhelming majority of the population there. The New York Times timeline of white extremist murders covers 9 years and 15 incidents, bookend bookended by the heinous and indisputably racist attacks in Norway in 2011 and Christchurch. Some of the most prominent killings among the remaining 13 incidents, though, resist categorization as acts of white racial terror. Ali Sanbali, the son of Iranian Shiite Muslim immigrants and visibly a racial minority, carried out the 2016 Munich mall shooting. The 2016 Umpqua Community College shooting was carried out by a self-identified mixed-race man, as was the 2014 Isla Vista massacre, whose perpetrator believed that being half Chinese made him unattractive to women. The 2018 Toronto van massacre was perpetrated by a white man who declared he was part of an incel rebellion against the Chads and Stacys of the world. In other words, he was angry he could not get a girlfriend and was committed to overthrowing the beautiful people. The killer mowed down pedestrians in Toronto's business district at random. The Times' inclusion of these 4 incidents calls into question its value of its diagnosis of white extremist killers. When Ocasio-Cortez tweeted that white supremacists were responsible for the most extremist killings of 2017, she was obviously wrong, by at least 2 and maybe 3 orders of magnitude, if she meant worldwide, which is unclear from her tweet. Much is unclear from many of her tweets. There were at least 8,500 such incidents worldwide that year, and white supremacists accounted for perhaps 15 or 20 of them, depending on how you count. Perhaps Ocasio-Cortez was thinking of the U.S. and maybe relying on the Anti-Defamation League report, Murder and Extremism in the United States in 2017, for her information. According to the ADL, 34 people were killed as a result of extremist violence that year in the U.S., 8 of them by Sayfullo Saipov on Halloween in Lower Manhattan. Another victim was Heather Heyer, who was run over by James Fields during the Charlottesville protest. Heyer's killing can legitimately be labeled an act of white nationalist violence, as Fields was an open admirer of Hitler and the Confederacy. But the other murders that the ADL counts as extremist-related are fuzzy, even by the ADL standards. For instance, Frank Ancona, a Klan member from Missouri, was killed in a domestic dispute by his wife, also a Klan member. And some of the other events, according to the ADL, include killings stemming from factional disputes, murders of suspected informants, as well as murders committed by extremists in the pursuit of traditional criminal motives. The Wall Street Journal, citing the U.S. Extremist Crime Database, reports that the frequency of violent hate crime in the United States has been about the same for 50 years. White supremacy is insane and immoral, and it may be a significant threat, but it doesn't account for anywhere near the preponderance of global extremist violence, though one might get a different impression from recent coverage. Now, if pressed, I would guess that Mr. Barron here and I differ on many things, many ideas, politically, economically, and so on, as I differ with many people I know. But on this we agree. Extremist violence in any form is insane and immoral. White supremacy is wrong, immoral, evil. There is no one race of humans on this planet that is supreme to any other. You can be a supreme member of your academic knowledge group because of study. And you can be that no matter what your race, ethnicity, heritage, gender, doesn't matter. If you work hard and study, you are supreme in your knowledge to others who did not. But simply by virtue of birth, the color of your skin, your heritage, you are not supreme to anyone. You are human. They are human. Although if you listen to much of the rhetoric coming from the intolerant bigots, as I will call them, on all sides of any argument, dehumanization of those you feel are inferior to you is something that always begins. And that is where it starts. When people are raised with extremists around them who dehumanize members of another group, that person grows up not knowing the difference between right and wrong when it comes to killing who they've been told are inferior. It's no less wrong when they do it. But the crux of the matter on this, to me, is disinformation and outright lies. When you look at the absolute facts, even looking at the ADL and how they classified their definition of white extremist violence, and they even admit at the end that not all of it was even considered white extremist violence, it was factional disputes or in pursuit of other criminal activity. you can see a motive here. Motive is very simply control. If you can convince the world that one group of people is responsible for all of the ills of the world, you turn the rest of the world against that group. I in no way, shape, form, or fashion will ever tell you that Islam as a whole is a terrorist organization. I will tell you that the worst terrorist attack in this country of the last 50 years, I will at least give that, happened due to people who claimed membership of the Church of Islam. Prior to that, it would have been Pearl Harbor, and prior to that would probably have been the Bath Schoolhouse Massacre, all perpetrated by people of different races and creeds, all evil, all deplorable acts. I have many people I know and interact with in my day-to-day life who are Muslim, Hindu, atheist, Buddhist, Jewish, Christian, and other. White, black, male, female, Hispanic, Asian. None of it matters to me when I walk into my office. I know who holds the most knowledge on different subjects, and I go to those people when I have questions. They know where I gain knowledge easily and where I have become a subject matter expert, and they come to me with their questions. We work seamlessly together because we don't see any other aspect other than who has worked and put in the time to become an expert on a topic. Okay, find me that person. I have a question for them. And that is all that ever should happen in any professional setting. When I leave work, I interact with people just as I do in my office. And I don't judge anything other than actions. I see someone acting out, berating a young person who is just trying to do their job. I see someone becoming physically violent with another person. I judge that action, and I attempt to intervene if I can. I don't care who's doing it. The action is what is wrong. And that's how I was raised. I don't care where you come from. I don't care the color of your skin. I don't care male or female. I don't care any of it. I care how you lived your life. Yes, I am a Christian. Yes, that means I believe that as a Christian, that I will at the end be judged by God, and as a Christian will be welcomed into his paradise of heaven. I also believe that if you are not a born-again Christian, you will not be. But part of that also believes that there is the one line that often gets overlooked when someone says something is a sin. It's the beginning of what is called the Roman road. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I'm a sinner just as I am charged with witnessing to my fellow man and calling out their sin. Above that, I'm called to recognize my own and work to not sin. But whenever someone says that they believe homosexuality is a sin, or they believe adultery is a sin, or drunkenness, theft, murder, it instantly jumps to, oh, well, that's a Christian belief. And you can't call out sin because you're not calling out yourself. That's not true. I'm not required to walk up when I say I believe murder is a sin and say, well, to preface this, I believe I am a sinner too, but murder is also a sin. That's not how it works. It's not how speech works in any organized area where you are going to be speaking on a topic. But again, this is used to silence dissent, just as this article is being used to silence people who would stand up and say, no, Miss Ocasio-Cortez, no, New York Times, you're actually incredibly wrong here. Because then, when you do that, Miss Ocasio-Cortez or any other member of the far left who wants to control the country at this point in time will instantly jump to they're defending white nationalists, they're defending white supremacists. I would never do that, and I will never do that. What I will do is point out inaccuracies, lies, and falsehoods, and this article written by the New York Times is full of them. And I commend Mr. Barron on a well-written article because he points out exactly what needs to be pointed out. That violence of any kind is wrong. Extremism of any kind is wrong. But in calling out only white supremacist or white extremist violence, you're ignoring the vast majority of those who commit violence on a scale hitherto unknown, other than in the past probably few hundred years. But I've talked on this one long enough. Let me know what you think. This is a charged article. It is a very heated argument topic. So make sure that you moderate your words. Keep them very civil and very classy because, as always, we don't learn from argument, we learn from debate. And when you approach a topic like this, you do need to approach it carefully so that you ensure that you maintain a debate attitude and you don't allow yourself to be dragged down. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button and please consider subscribing and ringing notifications so that you're kept up to date on future articles, future topics. As I've said before, I have some rabbit holes I'm exploring that I should be going down before too much longer, but I like to do my research. So again, you'll want to be subscribed with notifications when that does happen. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful day.